All right, we are live. So welcome, guys. Note to File Live. Still in our early infancy here, so bear with me. The idea was always to have the podcast guest first and then a live later, but we're mixing it up. We have a lot of really cool people in the field right now doing cool stuff. One of those people, Mike Wenger. Mike, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know we've been talking for some time now. I'm glad to finally drag you on to doing something on live here with me. As always, feel free, guys, to leave comments. We love community engagement, questions, any other cool comments you might make. Otherwise, let's just jump in. I guess you haven't been a podcast guest yet. We got it on the books, but I'd like to just hear a little bit about kind of what brought you to the clinical trial space. I think it's always kind of cool to hear people's backstories. Very few people set out to be like, hey, I'm going to work in clinical trials. It's just not something we've seen a whole lot of in the past. We're seeing more of it. But either way, love to hear a little bit about your background and, kind of what brought you to the kind of clinical trial space.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for me, I would trace it back to college. I was econ major, senior year, spring, was looking at jobs on Wall Street and was having really bad headaches and went to a neurologist, a doctor, and kind of quickly realized something was going on and ended up going to New York Presbyterian in New York City and was diagnosed with a brain tumor during break senior year. And we talked about surgery options. We talked about a bunch of different options, and very scary time in my life. Spent several months not knowing what the prognosis would be, good or bad, and just kind of went back to school senior spring. And things weren't the same. I thought about things differently. A couple months later, got a really good prognosis that the growth of the tumor was slow enough that there was no surgery needed, something that probably won't affect me in my lifetime. But I had kind of gone through this very quarter-life crisis experience around just health and health scares, and came out on the other side of that feeling really fortunate and lucky, and recognizing and appreciating that a lot of people don't have the same sort of prognosis and are dealing with more challenges on the other side of that. So I think that took me down a different path. A few years later, I found myself taking a job building out a digital strategy team at the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research. Amazing organization. Amazing community. Parkinson's is a very difficult disease, and just seeing all the inspirational stories around folks donating, climbing mountains, running marathons, and participating in research to just try to find a cure for that difficult disease really was a kind of my true entry point into the industry. While I was there, we worked on a solution called Fox Trial Finder, which helped match Parkinson's patients to clinical studies. And we spent a lot of time thinking through an interventional trial is a very big decision. And so it's not a good fit for everybody. And what are other things you can do beyond just that first $100 check or running that marathon? Are there observational studies you can participate in? Is there longitudinal research that you could do a DNA test and share things back? And so we really thought about what it means to raise your hand in research. And it isn't always just an interventional study. It can be a much broader concept. And making sure that everybody knows about those options, understands the how that is altruistic and giving back, and then really appreciating and calling out the people that do raise their hands for the amazing work that they do. So that was 15, 20 years ago. It's been in the space ever since as a software developer, building solutions for patient recruitment companies to connect to pharma companies, building solutions for patient advocacy groups, and now most recently with my newest venture, working on a solution to actually help clinical trial sites.
Yeah, let's talk about that. There's clearly, first of all, it's intense backstory, to go from such a crazy health scare to to where you are today. So, that's certainly given you probably a pretty unique perspective compared to a lot of people in the tech space, especially, who may be very disconnected from, what happens between patients and sites. And, so I can appreciate that, you certainly bring a unique perspective. But, if you look around right now, if you scroll down LinkedIn, there's I don't know how many new vendors coming into the field. I mean, DTRA is, 200 plus, vendor companies. It seems like, maybe that's an exaggeration, but everywhere you turn, new vendors, new software companies, a lot of them attacking, for lack of a better word, or sort of addressing the vendor sponsor CRO side, I guess I would say. Maybe some of them are patient facing or direct to patient, but not a lot necessarily focusing directly on trial sites, right? And I've been saying this a lot lately. I feel like more than people recognize, patients and sites are kind of in the same boat. I've always felt that way. Where we spend a lot of time really walking patients through the journey of participation in a health in a research trial. We invest really in relationships with our patients, and for better or worse, a lot of the ways things work at sites is really terrible. We have a lot of bad technology that kind of gets thrown at us. Very little. It's like the site kind of owns very, very little in terms of space when it comes to the technology solution. So, those are all some great reasons, but what did you see that, kind of jumped out to you that made you want to take something more to the site side?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing industry we work in. To your point of everyone has a different entry point, I think everyone has very good intentions to do right by patients, to do right by research, to move science forward. It is a very complex system to the point where it's almost silly. There's very few industries that I could even think of where the buyer of software is not the user of software, let alone the amount of software options is so fragmented that it's hard just keeping track of the acronyms involved. There's a lot of money, which means a lot of possibility to carve out spaces to build solutions. But again, if you're a vendor in the space, everyone kind of knows that pharma is where the source of the funds are. So whether you're selling directly to pharma, you're going through the CRO route, or a site, but the site is billing. Like at the end of the day, the pharma is the person you really need to make happy. And I guess, having been in the industry for a while, I entered it very optimistic. And I think it's tough to be in conversations where you're talking to a pharma person. They're very heavily involved in making decisions about tools that sites are using, yet they've never been to a site themselves. They've never been to a site conference. They'll go to the conferences where, the well-capitalized tech vendors are and the pharma companies are, and there's conversations being had there. But I guess over the past several years, I just saw that the voice of the site was missing in a lot of those decisions. And I would go to great events, specifically Site Solution Summit that's coming up, one of my favorite events to go to. And when the sites actually got together, it was just so clear that there was pain. There was technology that was not solving problems, was actually creating problems. And there was just a lot of just yelling, or not yelling, but like kind of just coming together to say, hey, here's things that just aren't right. And I just felt, the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, great. We have a problem. And I'm a solution-oriented person. I'm a software developer. I love turning 10 clicks into one. I'm the guy that when someone's in an Excel file and they get really excited about, some formula that they just did, I want to teach them macros, because time is important, and time leads to better morale, leads to better output. And so thinking about solutions, but it was really tough to see the folks that were building the solutions weren't always in the room when the sites were identifying the problems. And it was just bound to repeat itself next year. And we're going to go back next year and have the same conversations again. And so when I thought about making a change and starting something new, the whole idea behind VersaTrial was building something for sites and by sites. Didn't come in to try to be an acronym, didn't come in to try to push a pharma mandated solution on folks, but was something that just made sense, that they chose to use and that they love to use.
Yeah. And again, I think I want to get more into VersaTrial, but I mean, do you think that there's a inherent tension between sponsors and sites in terms of technology? I mean, it feels, I know I'm sometimes guilty of taking shots at vendors and, really better intentioned maybe than it comes off. But do you think it's creating an environment where it's, it's not really collegial anymore? I mean, frankly, we need both. I mean, we do. We need to be able to work with the vendors, and the vendors need to be able to work with us. But oftentimes there's just such a gap, to your point, between an understanding. I mean, I will say it seems like it's getting better. I do feel like there are more tech vendors kind of reaching out, but to your point, we're not buying it. We're not the ones with the deep pockets at the site level who are, you know, get to make that decision. Although you'd think if it worked better for a site, that, you know, it'd be a more successful product, which would make it more valuable in the end. But I mean, are we at sort of a, I don't know, pitch point here where, you know, we really have to figure it out, because, you know, now there's not just 5, there's, you know, 150. And I feel like it's going to get only worse for sites in the near future, you know, maybe better in the long term, but for the immediate future, it seems like it's going to become more, again, to your point, unnecessarily complex. I mean, do you think that's fair, or do you think, you know, it will in fact get easier?
The younger me would be like, yeah, we're going to solve this. I definitely have become a little bit more cynical as I've gotten older. I think you've rubbed off on me a little bit. Well, I mean, it's a 2-part problem. It's an awareness thing, and then it's am I motivated to fix it? So I love throwing out the metaphor, the blind mice, where if you remember, the several blind mice are all touching the elephant at different parts of the elephant, and they think it's a different thing, but we're talking about an elephant. So I think, first off, it's hard in our industry because very few people have sat in the coordinator role, have sat at a site, have sat at a CRO, have sat at a pharma, and have sat at a tech vendor. Very few people in the network kind of check all those boxes. So we're not all talking about the same elephant sometimes. Everyone's going to have their perspective of what is it like to work in a large pharma and navigate all the change management and reorgs and just that bureaucracy. Others going to have the pain of being at a site and not having choice in these things, and just everything is mandated on you. And then other people are going to work at tech vendors where you're just trying to stay alive to your next fundraise. And then I think some people get to wear the patient hat, or will volunteer and participate in the study and get to experience that experience. So I do think that one thing that could be helpful is folks like yourself sharing the voice of sites, folks going and participating in research studies themselves. I know a lot of people participated in the vaccine research the past few years, just so that we can all start to see the bigger picture of what the elephant is, and not just say, okay, I know I have the trunk, or someone thinks that they have the tail. Once there's that generalized awareness that's more broad, that's great. But now it's, okay, who can actually make change happen and fix things? And is there the motivation there? So where the cynic in me kicks in a little bit is, if I'm a tech vendor, I'm motivated about my tech company becoming the solution, the platform, the thing. And the idea of interoperability gets a little bit of lip service, because I don't want APIs and data getting out of my system and my, you know, other folks in the industry doing better than me and getting market share. So I'm going to be a little bit more Apple-minded, closed, and just try to be the portal.
The walled garden.
The walled garden mindset, which understandable, but also not great for the space. So I guess when I hear things like, you know, interoperability, you know, tech vendors collaborating, things like that, it is true. It is happening. It just really is, because it's an investment on both sides. There's risk involved. I don't think it's going to be so commonplace where we can have a very fragmented tech marketplace with solutions with great experiences that all nicely play in the sandbox together. I think that's something that'll be tough to fight against. Yeah,
no, that's an interesting comment, because I feel like I hear both sides, and even I waffle from like day to day where I'm like, you know, just one platform would be great. I just want one place. And then other days I'm like, you know what, interoperability would be great. I'd rather have all these different options, and I can, you know, slap them together with an API. And, you know, I think the jury's out depending on who you talk to. But like you, I can't help but be a little bit skeptical that everyone's going to say, sure, I'll open up the kimono here, and you can, you know, jump right in, and you know, we'll share data. Yeah. I just don't see that happening. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you know,
I mean, if you think about like another industry, so, you know, it's good to not have a monopoly. You know, fragmentation is good for the strength of the market. The problem I think we have is, like, let's just take Salesforce and like a customer relationship management tool, a CRM. Right. There are a lot of competitors to Salesforce, but that is like kind of a very holistic solution for your sales team. that you are buying and you know what you are paying for, and you know what your users are getting, and you know when your sales team is not happy, and you know when you need to make a change. That market is competitive. CRMs will rise and fall, but the buyers, the users are the same, and they have to win with better products. That's the way to win. But if you look at our market, our industry, it's not, there's just the CRM, and it's holistic, and it's the only tool that the sales team logs in. I think the SCRS survey from a year or two ago said that on average, a site user is logging into at least 20 different systems per day. Each pharma is coming with their own pharma mandated tech on their own studies. And so again, it's not one tool and I'm just going to swap one CRM for another. You're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 different solutions that all have their own fragmented sub-markets, which theoretically should be tightly coordinated of, great, I got the referral of the patient from the central campaign. I want it in my CTMS. I want that data to flow into the EDC and also augment it with the EHR. That's 6 companies right there.
Right.
That's six companies just in that one data flow. Now multiply that by the number of vendors in each of those different acronyms, and now you have an exponential problem on your hands.
Yeah.
So even as a tech vendor, great. Yeah, I'm happy to integrate, but I can't integrate with 20 companies at a time. So it is, I don't think there's, a bad actor or someone that's trying to hold us back. I just think the complexity of the system makes it challenging for anyone to really have a meaningful, disruptive change.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. And, I want to segue this into VersaTrial and sort of the issues that you're addressing. But we have some pretty cool questions here. I want to kind of take a moment to look at. So Van Crocker, thank you for asking a question here. Look, we're seeing all these big software companies acquiring or building new assets to accumulate patient data. If you read, you'll see all these big guys. Are they well positioned to build a highly targeted software, and something that you would view as critical? I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a really good question from Van. Definitely not my area of expertise, kind of the data, especially on the real world data side of things. My background's more in active studies focused around recruitment and just that area. Acquisitions can be good. I was a part of an acquisition a couple years ago. They can go sideways, they can go bad, they can make a product better and weaker. I do think that there is value in that, whether it's the horizontal or vertical integration, the idea of a company starting to get out of their own single lane and starting to have a more holistic solution. So I think that is a positive thing, but I do think it then gets even that much harder to be the buyer in the pharma seat to say, there's an incumbent that I've worked with for many years and they do this specific thing. They are now expanding to a new area. Is that new service, new product offering good enough to replace my current status quo? Am I going to give them a chance? That's a tough call, I think, for a lot of people. I think pharma buyers are just pretty status quo, which is really tough for the startup and is really tough for the company that's trying to expand their offering. Once you're in that beautiful preferred vendor MSA place, like life is good. You're in the in crowd, but when you're on the outside, really, really hard to get in. So I don't have the answer to that one, but I do think change is good. I think more companies entering the space is good. So when there's an Amazon announcement tomorrow that they're doing something like that's a positive in my book. Competition breeds best in class solutions, and the winner stays alive.
Yeah, that's fair, and I would tend to agree there. And this is sort of an interesting question to me too, from Jonathan Cousins. Do you think user experience and UI do they trump interoperability? Is it more important to have a good UI UX?
Definitely. I gave a talk. I think it was maybe 2 years ago at maybe it was Scope, and the whole talk was around the patient experience, and been around a lot of patients, especially given my patient advocacy group days. And if you talk to folks that had participated in a study or had dropped out in the process, and you said, hey, you've used kayak.com. Would you give Kayak 5 stars or 1 star? You know, you've used Uber. Would you give 5 star or 1 star? Whenever it was a consumer facing tech, like a kayak, always 5 stars. It just the ease of use, the simplicity, the fact that I booked and it auto-populated on my calendar, and I got high value to be able to choose of all the options out there in the world of what flight I want to take to get to Italy tomorrow. Like, I picked the one that made the most sense for me. Amazing experience. Very easy to give a 5 star. Where it gets really interesting is on the patient side. How many patients can say, oh yeah, I had a 5 star patient experience going through the clinical trial process? It's hard for them to give a 5 star because they've never done it before. So there's nothing to compare it to. You know, it was miserable, but maybe that's as good as it can be. But also, you know, it was much easier in my talk. I said, you know, it's hard to maybe figure out exactly what 5 stars looks like, but it's very clear what 1 star looks like. 1 star is I emailed the site and I was interested and I never heard back. That is so common. I, you know, went on site and completed the trial and never heard from anybody ever again. They just went, I never got my data back. I never learned about the outcome of the study. Huge missed opportunity. One of the most amazing things, and so simple that I think is amazing, is when folks donate blood. I don't know if it's as much in the US, but definitely in the UK, you donate your blood. And then when that blood is then used at a hospital, you get a text message to thank you for that. I don't think we do enough to acknowledge and appreciate patients that go through our process during it, after it. And I think it's very transactional. It's very, I'm the pharma, I need you today. I got what I needed. I'm on to the next, you know, the next compound, or, you know, now we're going to market, and there's not the investment to go back and really appreciate what took place. And I do think that, going back to the question about the UI UX there, if patients were really having 5 star experiences, like I worked at the Michael J. Fox Foundation, patients talk in Facebook groups, they talk to each other at events, they talk to each other at the doctor's office. And so if the first person going through that line is getting that 1 star experience, and they say, yeah, I had this trial thing, I got an ad on Facebook, and then never heard from anybody, that's going to have a trickle effect to all the next set of Parkinson's patients. And then no one's going to want to participate. So I do think as an industry, we do really need to, especially start with the patient, make sure that maybe we don't know what 5 stars looks like, but let's try to avoid some of those 1 star experiences. And then similarly, going back to the site, I do think that there is either not visibility today in the 1 star site experience, or there's just it's not my problem mindset, and it is what it is. It's the status quo. So
yeah, well, and I think
matters.
Yeah, no, a lot of your points resonate with me because, you know, as a site, we do everything we can to provide a good experience for patients, because frankly, they will stop coming, or they won't enroll in the first place if it's not a good experience. You know, we ask a lot from patients. They got to take off work. They got to drive across town. They got to get childcare, whatever the case may be. So if the experience is bad, I mean, that puts us in a real bad spot, but we have very little control over many of those aspects that make it a good or bad experience. If I hand them an e-diary, I mean, I have to say, look, I'm sorry, this e-diary is garbage, and there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, it still reflects poorly on us as a site, but I didn't get to pick it, and I can't make it any better. You know, there's nothing I can do. And if they say, you know, hey, are you going to give me, you know, the results of my participation, or, you know, oftentimes I don't get told that as a site. And if I do, it's not until much later. And again, it puts us in a bad position to be like, look, we can't even share it with you because it's oftentimes not shared with us, you know, and that trickles down, you know, eventually reflects poorly on the site. And I think, to your point, something again that's underappreciated is I can't tell you how many patients we get that are referred from patients who are in a study and having a good experience. That's super understated and you know, oftentimes really underappreciated. So yeah, I mean, I'm right on board with you there. I think we need to figure out how to make the experience better for patients, but it can be made better by patients by also making it better for sites. Yeah, again, they're kind of in the same.
If you are connected, and a win on one side is a win for the other, because of the site has to deal with the challenges that the patient's going to run into, and the site's going to have their own challenges. Here's just a perfect example that I saw a week ago in person. Visited a site, talked with them about I love to ask a lot of questions. They had a pharma, and maybe pharma mandate is a little too aggressive a term, but a pharma software that they needed to use for a specific study, and it had a bug in it, and the bug was preventing the site from using the tool properly. So the coordinator spent an hour and a half on the phone trying to get someone at the tech vendor to just log the issue. Was kind of dismissed a little bit, like, oh, this is user error, like you just got to clear your cache. And she's like, okay, that's as far as I can take that conversation. She then said she brought it up with the CRA, and CRAs have a lot on their plate, and so falls through the cracks or not top of mind for them. But as a result, they had to switch to paper off of kind of like the e-source that they were supposed to be using. Got in trouble for that, and but like didn't have a choice in the matter. And then you in that same meeting, the pharma was there, and you say, hey pharma, like, did you know this was a problem? And it was like, oh no, this wasn't on my radar. And then you say, well, okay, so if it's an issue at this specific site, and you're working with 50 sites on this study, of the other 49, how many of them have the exact same problem? All of them? None of it? Like there was just such a gap in awareness. The tech vendor didn't have it as a major fire for them because it was kind of like, oh, like, small, like it wasn't the buyer coming in and saying, you got to fix this. And so as a result, the whole study completed, and the coordinator felt like they were shouting into the void and no one would hear them. They had screenshots of the bug. They had replication steps to recreate the bug. Nobody was there to fix the bug for them. So definitely going back to what we're trying to do with VersaTrial, like we're definitely trying to do right by sites by elevating their voice in the process, and make sure that pharma and sponsors that want to do right by sites actually have the data at their fingertips, and actionable data in a way that's more kind of coordinated around the collection of it. Sure.
Yeah. And again, it's I can't help it. I hate to laugh, but like, I feel like we deal with this all the time. It's, kind of to your point earlier, it's, I can't remember the axiom, but like, we don't attribute to malice what can easily be attributed to stupidity. I don't think there's any bad actor necessarily, but again, it's just so much complexity and sort of places for balls to get dropped where, we end up with a mess. And frankly, to a large degree, the sites suffer the consequences because we are getting beat up every 6 weeks by a CRA who's coming in and saying, well, what are you doing? Why'd you do this? You can't do that. And like, well, what else are we supposed to do? There's been a patient in our lobby for an hour and a half, and we're trying to get, them well taken care of. And again, it just creates a very tense situation. But no, I do want to segue more into VersaTrial because of what, I've seen, you've been showing me and kind of keeping me up to date. I think it's an amazing tool in both the problem it's solving and sort of the simple elegance of it, that it doesn't require Hanlon's razor. Thank you, whoever that is, LinkedIn user. Yeah, thank you. Anyways, it doesn't require, a big bulky platform that's complicated. It's very simple and straightforward to use, super intuitive. If you work at a site already, it makes perfect sense to you. So, tell us a little bit about the specific problems that you're solving with VersaTrial, and if you're open to it, feel free to give us a little bit of visualization, screen share if you want to, but let's just hear a little bit about it first.
Yeah. So before jumping into demo, as I mentioned, wanted to build something for sites. Didn't know what that was. Didn't want to just come in with another thingy. So I just sat at sites for a long time, and I again, problem solver, software developer, and I was just looking for patterns. And the one pattern that was so crystal clear by site visit number 5 was, you just got a new study. You're told what EDC, what IRT, what recruitment vendor, what DCT. You're getting all these vendor portals. And every coordinator, lead, backup, PI would go and they would take that portal link and save it in their browser as a bookmark. So, or in some instances, they might save it in an Excel file. So either Excel file or browser bookmarks. And I would ask some questions. I'd say, okay, this is great. Like, nice job of organizing this. That makes sense. But what happens when you go on vacation or if you leave the organization? Your data is siloed in your browser. And it was like, oh, well, no, each person on the team has to do this process and reinvent the wheel. And again, it's just browser bookmarks. So it's not highly searchable. It's not really clinical trial aware. So there's some shortcomings there. And it just became crystal clear to me that trying to not not create a change management of, okay, here's like another whole heavy system, but let's just do bookmarks better. How can we envision a world where bookmarks make sense, that have clinical trial awareness? So I'll jump into screen share. So let me know, Brad, once it pops up.
I think I have to add it to the stream here. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. So in this demo, I'm a coordinator and I work at ABC Site Network. So one of the things that we really want to make easy for whether you're the coordinator or the PI or just anyone working at the site, how do you get where you need to go faster? Today, you might have to log into a system. You might have to search for the study, click, 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 bury down, and all of a sudden you can get to the ICF document to go print it out at the printer. Or you kind of forget, oh, I know I have a recruitment portal for this study, but which one was it? I need to get there quickly. So efficiency, speed was the name of the game. So what we wanted to do was create a home page or a front page that just gave you all the shortcuts to all the places you would need to go or all the people you would need to talk to. So in my organizer, if I'm a site network, I can filter by different locations. If I'm a role where I only care about certain statuses of studies, I can filter that as well. But the whole idea was, let's make things highly searchable. So if I want to quickly see all of our Pfizer studies across, let's see, not just enrolling, but across all studies, how do we make it so that's always just a click away? How do we make it so that when I want to understand, so here's my 2 Pfizer studies. If I want to understand, I have to do something with Viva Vault. I forget which study that would be. I can just search by the vendor name and all of the relevant bookmarks get highlighted for me and are just a click away. If I want to remember who the CRA is coming on site for a specific study, and I remember it was John, making it very easy for me to quickly get John's contact details. So high discoverability, high searchability, front page experience, but then also layer in the team collaboration aspect of it. So if John is not the CRA anymore and he just left, and there was a great quote the other day that someone said, they said, my CRA changes more than my socks. But if that's true, it's really hard to make sure that everybody at the site knows that John's not the CRA anymore. Where are you going to update that? Is it in your Outlook? Is it buried in a CTMS somewhere? So to make it very easy to just one person go in and just replace John with the new CRA, and now everybody's homepage has the most up-to-date relevant information at their fingertips.
Well, I want to point out too, this is all accomplished through a browser extension, right? So
exactly,
which I thought was again keeps it very simple and easy. If I open up a new tab, instead of getting Google, I get VersaTrial popped up right there. And I can't tell you, this happens to me at least once every couple of weeks. I still work on a lot of trials myself, even running a business. Oh shit, which IVRS system does this use? I have no idea. I got to go find SIV slides. I got to search my Outlook to remember what system is being used by which particular sponsor. It's completely insane. So this is not to make it derogatory, but so like low hanging fruit, intuitive, for sites, it just makes ridiculous amount of sense. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah, simplicity is good. I take that as a compliment. I definitely wanted to go with a solution where it didn't feel like I had to learn something new or a different way of doing things, but it felt very familiar. And that's one of the reasons why even when you add a new bookmark, it's going to feel very familiar. So if we, for instance, had a protocol document, and let's say the protocol lives in your Microsoft SharePoint or it lives in your CTMS. At the end of the day, you're going to be viewing that URL. And what you would have done historically would have been to save the bookmark as a Chrome bookmark. But the new way of doing things with that goal of simplicity and familiarity is right next to that, you're just going to click the VersaTrial browser icon, the browser extension, which is just a one-click install. And now you can reference any study where this is relevant. And if it is that enrolling Pfizer study, you can now easily label the bookmark based on the relevant acronym. And maybe you could call it the protocol. Or if there's not a good match, you could always just say other, and you can type in whatever you'd like here. And this will now be added back for the whole team and be included in highly searchable. So if we go back to our organizer and we were to filter by the word amendment, that Pfizer protocol amendment is now available to the whole team and will just be a click away for everybody.
I mean, there's nothing to even say. It's perfect. It's simple. It's easy. And again, a challenge we face, especially now as site models are evolving to become more decentralized. It can be a challenge to make sure that everybody's on the same page. While we all have the same protocol versions, we're using the most newly approved ICF, whatever the case may be. So, again, any one person, depending on their role, I guess, can, make those updates, and everyone on the team is going to have access to the most current information, which still remains a challenge.
Right. One of the metaphors that I like to use is you're almost like tidying up your room, and you're making it just tidying it up for everybody as well while you're doing it. The organization is going to save everybody time. Maybe the PI is not the one that's creating all the bookmarks. Maybe it is the coordinator.
It'll never be the PI.
It'll never be the PI. Yeah, I've learned that the hard way. But the PI gets to benefit from it. The coordinator gets to benefit from it. So when they go on vacation for 2 weeks, like that, someone can easily pick up where they left off.
Well, and I think, contacts is like a sort of really underappreciated thing, because not just the changes, but like, I can't tell you, like midstream in a study, there's like, oh, well, I'm the CTM who's helping your CTRA. I'm like, well, who the hell are you? Where have you been? And again, they may reach out to just the regulatory person, right? And not the coordinator. So again, being able to sort of keep all that information together in one place is really, really, I think, something that's undervalued. I haven't been able to find a really great solution from that. And see, we have an MD here. She gets benefit from it. Sorry, PIs. I wasn't trying to throw any PIs under the bus. So
so once we kind of brought this to market, so as a company, we launched a few months ago, the natural next question people asked was, are you going to tackle passwords as well? So we're actively working on our password solution. For anyone that uses a 1Pass or a LastPass, it's going to feel very familiar. But basically allowing an organization to not just securely save my password as Mike Wenger and keep that secure, but allow the site to have greater visibility and awareness to where is our access gaps. Where is it where there's a critical system and only one person has access to that EBC? That person's about to go on paternity leave. What do we need to do there? So really, for us, it's trying to take some solutions that might already exist today, but really bring it into the world of clinical trial sites so that it's just more usable and has that awareness.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know how deep you want to go on the demo, but I do want to point out the sort of brilliance of the feasibility process. I don't know if you want to go into that today or not, but especially, again, as teams grow and roles change, I find, I'm doing less feasibility, and I'm having sort of my coordinators who are now experts in their therapeutic areas oftentimes take care of a lot of feasibility. And the problem is you're oftentimes chasing down, the same information to the same questions over and over again. But again, there's not really been a good way to have everybody on the same page in terms of, not having to reinvent the wheel every time you need to know how many Crohn's patients are being seen every month. So I know that's something you've addressed in a way that's, again, fairly, I hate to keep using the word elegant, but I really like it today. So that's how you're being described. So
perfect. I'll take elegant. I actually didn't know a lot about feasibility questionnaires. We started with the bookmarks and just got to know sites more and more and started to meet either the owners or, for the larger networks, that had BD teams. And similar, just sat there and kind of watched the day to day. And to your point, Brad, the amount of answers that get reused is very high. I think it's somewhere maybe between like 40 to 80% of questions are questions you've been asked before on previous questionnaires. And so for a lot of the teams, they would just kind of, as they go, copy and paste questions and answers into like a Word document for future reference, this running knowledge bank of previous answers. Or they would grab screenshots before they hit the submit button. So they always had an archival record of what did we tell the pharma So when they come on site, we can, make sure our stories line up appropriately. It was very tedious to maintain those things, and it wasn't very usable or searchable after the fact. So we wanted to kind of take that on head on, and we're leveraging the same VersaTrial browser extension. And whenever a questionnaire comes in, whether it's however the technology, the form technology that's used, it could be SurveyMonkey, Google Form, Microsoft Form, Qualtrics Form, a survey from a specific CRO or from SIP. Whatever the technology, the form technology is, we use our browser extension to embed the same consistent experience into the form itself. So if you're a site network, you can easily toggle between your different locations to say which location am I going to be working on. And then as you type your answers, I'm going to make myself a doctor for today, the VersaTrial browser extension is going to auto save that answer to a database for this specific location. And if there's a question that you've answered before, which is very common, we make it very easy to just one click, slide in your database of all your previous answers. You can review those answers over time, and they're sorted by recency. You can view who did that previous answer, who provided that answer previously, how long ago, and go back and view that original form if needed. And if there's an answer that's a good fit, you can just one click auto-populate back into the original survey. So the idea of saving you time, not having to write these answers from scratch, archiving your answers so that you can always make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And then if you do come across some of those questions where you as the owner or the BD team don't know the answer and you need to loop in the PI, making it very easy to assign that to a teammate or multiple teammates, and then kicking off essentially like a DocuSign type experience for that person to go in, answer the question, and then I get notified once they've completed it.
Yeah, that's another huge thing is, oftentimes it's easy enough for me to fill out 90% of these forms, but I need to know something very specific about, the current standard of care from a clinician or maybe a specific number I just haven't had to have before. So instead of, currently like selectively copying and pasting chunks out of, the feasibility and emailing it, hopefully in a format that's halfway legible to the doctor, and hoping that he answers all the questions and not half of them, which happens all the time as well. You're able to have a kind of more direct and sort of tracked process to reach out and get those questions answered, which again, I think is a very underappreciated feature there. I don't know. I love it.
Glad you love it. Yeah, this one, having chatted with enough BD teams where you're just doing so many surveys per day, the time savings here and the ability to just increase the number of questionnaires you work on or focus on improving the quality or even the speed to submission. I think one of the things that we've heard a lot from CROs and pharma is it's almost like rolling admissions. The sooner you get your information back to us, the quicker we can give you the thumbs up. And what will happen is a lot of these questionnaires get bogged down because you did 90% of it, but you're waiting for the PI to get back to you and they were on vacation. And then the person forgot about it and fell through the cracks. So if we can improve the quality of the submission and the speed to submission, we're seeing a lot of sites be excited about how it will improve their success rate.
Anything else you want to show before I?
That's the goodies for today. We're actively always working on more and more, lightweight solutions that almost feel like workflow optimizations. And we definitely love the sites that have worked with us from the beginning. And we love that we've been expanding the sites that we work with. And so we're always thinking through what is the next workflow enhancement that we can add to our suite of solutions.
So is this open to patient or to sites rather today, or are you still kind of in beta mode, or where are you at in terms of availability to sites out there?
Yeah, we launched back in May and did a kind of a private exclusive pilot with several large site networks and sites here in the US and Canada. Really battle test it to make sure that the onboarding experience was very intuitive, make sure that the functionality delivered on what people were looking for. And so we're now out of that closed beta. It is now open to all sites. You can go to versatrial.io to get started. And the other thing that we're really excited about as an organization is we do plan everything that I demoed on the call today is going to be made available for free to sites indefinitely. Our business model is going to evolve as we grow. We're going to introduce more premium features and functionality for sites in the future that has more business intelligence around it. And we're also actively in conversations with several pharma partners to come in for win-win business models where they can come in and be the buyer of the tool, but it's going to be all value add to the sites. So one of the features that I'm most excited about is a pharma gives you a new study for Brad, for your site, but when you log in, it shows that pharma's logo, and 6 of the bookmarks are pre-populated by the pharma. The CRA's information is already pre-populated by the pharma. And if that CRA quits a month from now because you have to change your socks, the pharma updates that and you get pushed the update to your homepage. So that collaboration is something we're really, really excited about.
That's a world that I want to live in.
Yeah,
for sure. Let's get, if you guys have any more questions, get them in here as we're sort of wrapping up. So yeah, I posted your link up there. Where's a place that, you know, maybe people can kind of reach out to you to learn more about VersaTrial?
Yeah. So I'm trying to follow your footsteps, Brad, of being more visible and vocal on LinkedIn. I'm Mike Wenger on LinkedIn. Would love for anyone to connect or chat or have conversations there. We're also going to be at Site Solution Summit coming up in a couple weeks down in Hollywood, Florida. We'll have a booth with cookies. So come get a cookie at least, and hopefully maybe a demo and learn more about us. And outside of that, our website again is VersaTrial.io. It's pretty minimal at the moment. We'll have more details coming soon there. But if you put in your contact details, we'll get back to you right away and set up a demo call.
Very cool. Yeah. So there's Mike's LinkedIn. You know, we love LinkedIn here in the research space. It seems a lot of good stuff there. I'll throw you up your website one more time. Anything else as we kind of wrap up here? I mean, again, I think this is one of those things that is, again, it doesn't necessarily, and I appreciate this about it, it doesn't necessarily seem like a huge, cumbersome solution. It's solving real practical problems that are happening at the site level that, you know, again, everyone has dealt with, you know, so again, I just can't say enough how much I sort of appreciate the approach and making it simple and relevant for sites. So, I mean, it's great. Go check out VersaTrial.io. Anything else as we wrap up here?
No, really appreciate the platform, Brad. I've enjoyed learning more about the world of sites through your posts and podcasts, and keep the good content coming.
All right. I appreciate it. You guys stay tuned. Mike will also be doing a podcast appearance. We'll go into some more, hopefully down some other rabbit holes, as there are a lot in the industry. So again, thanks, Mike, for coming on.
Thank you, Brad.